The early to mid-19th century, quite frequently mentioned as part of the antebellum era, brought about changes to the culture and society of America through changing cash crops, increasing Southern influence, and changes in sentiment towards slavery. Although this period may be considered as uneventful and just context for the Civil War, it contains many important ideas that shaped the history of the U.S.
The decline of the tobacco economy resulted in the rise of cotton, the cash crop that greatly influenced the culture of the South. Cotton was superior to tobacco because it grew well in a variety of soils and did not exhaust the land. With the invention of the cotton gin and growing demand for cotton fabrics, the cotton industry thrived, leading to a drastic increase in slavery. The South did not develop industrially because the climate and land was so favorable for agriculture, and lots of money could be made off of crops. In addition, the South did not have many roads or canals. James B. DeBow felt that the South was too dependent on the North and wanted economic independence. The Southern aristocracy was made up of the small minority of citizens who owned plantations and slaves in substantial numbers. The aristocracy valued honor, conventional forms of courtesy and respect. This honor meant emphasis on what they considered the defense of women, making Southern women even more subordinate to men. Women's roles included spinning, weaving, and helping to organize slaves. They did not have many education opportunities, and when they did have a chance to go to school, they were educated only in activities that were traditionally considered feminine. The typical white Southerners were called plain folk. These people owned a few slaves and devoted themselves to subsistence farming. The hill people were the Southerners who lived isolated in the Appalachian Mountains. For the most part, they were disconnected from the rest of the South and as a result didn't have ideologies like them, such as the institution of slavery. They also opposed the power and influence that plantation owners had.
Most Southerners considered slavery as special, and it was, by definition. Slavery itself was strange, as it isolated blacks and whites, yet brought them together. Slavery was not a static institution, as it varied from owner to owner, especially based on the location of the owner, such as farmlands or cities. There was a formal law regulating slavery, yet it wasn't enforced at all. The lives of slaves were varying, based on age and gender. Free African Americans did exist around the country, yet they faced similar restrictions like slaves. As a result, resistance was common and sometimes even expected. While in slavery, African Americans developed a unique culture in the forms of music, language, and religion. Many parts of their culture under bondage survived through the Civil War and still exist today, stronger than ever. Their culture, however, was heavily influenced by their owners, as their language was a broken, simple English. The religion was overwhelmingly Christian. This was a result of certain aspects of their culture being forced onto them by their owners. Slave families are also crucial to black culture. Family is a broad term in this case, as most nuclear families were torn apart by traders. To make up for this, many lone children and parents were often adopted into existing families to strengthen bonds. Now we will discuss the answers to the SAQ everyone has done on Tuesday. As you can recall, the questions were A. Identify one social impact of slavery in the South. B. Identify and explain one difference between the common and aristocratic white Southerners. And C. Describe one way how African Americans responded to the institution of slavery.
For Part A, possible answers could have included increased class differences among white settlers, establishment of the culture of white supremacy, or development of African American culture like the syncretic religion or pidgin language. For Part B, aristocratic Southerners owned many more slaves and had much greater political influence than the plain folk. They were also cash crop farmers, not subsistence farmers.
The answer to Part C would be along the lines of the adaptation or resistance of slaves. For example, many slaves created a syncretic language based on English and had a religion based on Christianity, while others tried to escape slavery or overthrow their owners through rebellion.
As America grew and advanced politically, socially, and economically, the lives of the Southerners were also changed, for better or for worse. Such events related to this change would eventually shape the start of tensions between the North and the South, which would lead to one of the largest internal conflicts in American history, the Civil War. From agriculture to interfamilial relations to slavery, the early to mid-1800s were a defining part of the history of America.